Hello, friends. Welcome. And thank you, MJ, for alerting me to the fact that it's Thanksgiving over in Canada. So if you are watching this live and you're in Canada, happy Thanksgiving. Indeed, if you are joining live, thank you so much for taking the time. If you are watching on the playback, thank you as well for watching on the playback. And if you're Canadian, then happy, potentially belated Thanksgiving to you. Let's say some hellos. Hello, Anana Mouse. Hi, Steve. Hello, Scarlett. Thank you all for joining. Hello, Aurora. Hi, Paige. Oh, it's a jump. Hello. Lovely. Thank you, Marianne. Hello, Shane. Yes, Mr. Dr. Cat is currently putting Mini Dr. Cat. It's becoming very egotistical that I've named all my family after me. But hey, that's what men do. So it's fine. Mr. Dr. Cat is currently putting Mini Dr. Cat to sleep, and he is fighting the process. So I can sort of hear them in the next room, and probably me talking. It's not going to be helpful, but we are where we are. So that's what's going on. It's lovely to see so many friendly faces in. Thank you very much. We do have lots to get through tonight. Before we do, I just want to flag something, because I've seen some comments, particularly on the news lives when I've talked about the situation with what's going on with Ron DeSantis. And I want to make it clear that I am not sitting in judgment of any person from that state, or indeed from the United States at all. Trust me, I know. With the current government that we have, I know that the vast majority of people will not support what's happening. This is in no way a comment on America, American people, or anything like that. I just want to make that very, very clear. And if it's come across like that, that's not my intention. However, I do think that the policies being enacted are worthy of comment. And some people have kindly said things like, not all of Florida's like that, or not every Floridian is like that. And I fully know that. Also, there have been people who've been less kind. And I just want to point out that if me talking about, frankly, the offensive behaviour of somebody who has managed to wrangle their way into fairly high office and is damaging the educational prospects of countless children, if me commenting on that makes a person feel like I'm attacking them, then my response to that might be for them to think about how they're viewing the world and engaging with it, that feels like an attack on them, because that's not the intention. And if you read it as it, I saw something on another social media platform that I won't mention in case it gets me shadow banned on here, the phrase that hit dogs holler. So if me talking about these things makes somebody feel personally affronted, then that probably to me would be the issue, is that you feel the same way as him. And that's on you, babe. That's on you. I mean, the thing is, I don't sit on judgment on Florida, because while obviously he was somehow elected, I also know that some hinky stuff can happen with suppression of voters, with lobbyists. Democracy is, as far as I'm concerned, it's not my area of specialism, but democracy is under threat. And liars get into situations where they write checks they can't cash and they do atrocious things. And I feel genuinely bad for the people who feel like they have been deceived. I feel genuinely bad for the people who didn't vote for it. And as somebody who is living in the country I'm living in, trust and believe, if I was being judged as being the same as my politicians, I would be mortified. So I just don't want to chuck that in there. Thank you, Jessie. And of course, I hope that in the content that I put out, I have shown that I am capable of at least some nuance, and in seeing that situations aren't always black and white. There are shades of grey in there as well. And, we have a finite amount of time. I am responding to the news articles that I'm seeing and that I'm being sent. And a lot of those they have been DeSantis based, and the interference with the education system directly relates to the study of history. So that's sort of what I would flag up there. And Scarlett, no need to apologise for a side issue. I don't know what this completely means. So there is a Ravelry. If I pronounce that wrong, I apologise. That's for, I believe it's for crafting. Crochet? I'm saying words because I don't 100% understand. Scarlett has very kindly set up this group in Ravelry, and YouTube comments, they don't like people posting links in there. So what we can always do, if people, I just want to also flag that I have nothing to do with this group and I don't know what it is, but I know that lots of you want to be part of it. So I'm going to suggest that, as YouTube won't let you post links, if Scarlett, you send it to me, probably by email, reading the past with drcat@gmail.com, then what I can do is I can post it in the description box of this live stream after we finished. I don't know if this is something that requires moderating. I won't be moderating it. I hope you have a lovely time. And maybe if I pick up crochet, if I can teach myself, I will come over there at some point. Hi, Eric. Yes, my specialism is the Tudor period. My thesis covered the era between 1519 and 1615. So that's my area of specialism. But I have sort of picked up an interest in some bits of Georgian history, some bits of more contemporary history. I say contemporary, mostly nothing post the turn of the 20th century. That still feels contemporary to me. And I'm interested in the history of the East End as well, of London, to be specific. Yes, Scarlett, YouTube, that's a new thing. They don't need posting links. So I can post a link in the description box. Oh, sorry, Scarlett didn't set it up, but she's trying to help advertise it. Cool. So if you send me that link, that should be the way it goes. Right, so let us then jump in to the history news for today. There was some housekeeping there, and welcome. Thank you for joining. Thank you for those who are watching on the playback live. Today we do have some updates, some repatriation / decolonisation news. We have some new news. We do have a few ding-dongs, and we also have some events and exhibitions to discuss. All of these are linked in the Opera Pinboard, which is linked in the description box currently. You will also find that there is a list of articles in the description box. They are numbered, and that helpfully does correspond to the numbers on the bottom of the slides that we're going to be looking through as we go through. I have lots of people to thank for sending me articles, and I'm going to jump into the thanks now. I had one more thing I want to say. Oh, I should have made a note of that. It'll come back to me, I am sure. So let's start with the thanks. Thank you to Kenny, to Jessie, to Adventures from Shalott, to Elverta, Yvonne, Alicia, Name Twin Cat, Joseph, Deb, Karolyn, Verity, Scarlett OhHaHa, Felem, Annette, Daniella, Pandora Snudpuckle, Kathy, Sheri, Jennifer, Beth and Paige. And I have, just before I I remember what it is now. I was sent lots of news articles, and I've also been sent some since I've made the slideshow. So if you sent me something more recent, then that may not be in today's, because it will be in next fortnight's one, because I didn't see them before I finished this slideshow because I got it done a bit early. So in we go. Let's hop in to an update about the British Museum. They have released a series of images in a bid to recover missing items. They've asked the public to help it to identify and recover items that have been stolen from the collection. They have said that the majority of these missing items were from the gems and jewellery collection. There were gold rings, earrings, bracelets, necklaces, mostly from Greece and Rome. I believe the curator was their department, so that's where the access comes from. Some of the jewellery does date back to the late Bronze Age. We learned, of course, that all of these things were stolen. Potentially, some of them sold on eBay. On Tuesday, the museum did say that 60 items had been returned, and 300 were due to be returned imminently. So we'll see about that. As you can see, there's some fairly incredible things here. We've got a part of a sard gem, which is engraved with Isis and Serapis. We've got a chain gold necklace with clasps in the form of horned lions' heads. And then we've got this absolutely fabulous gold ring with twisted wires framing a notched wire in the centre. These missing artifacts, we're told, are now on the Art Loss Register, which is a private database of lost, stolen, looted art and antiquities. Dorsey said that she and Boardman were, quote, very grateful for the support they've received from outside experts. We've seen an encouraging start to the recovery programme and have been particularly impressed by the hard work and dedication of British Museum staff working with us. Ratcliffe said the British Museum's approach has been carefully balanced, and the need to provide information to the public to assist the recovery efforts, with the fact that providing too much detail risks playing into the hands of those who might act in bad faith. Thanks to our position as the principal due diligence resource for the art market and experience in recovery of stolen art and cultural property, the Art Loss Register has an unrivaled ability to assist with the museum recovery programme. We're delighted to provide our assistance on a pro bono basis to the excellent team of the museum to support their efforts. So we really like them. They where are they being returned from? Well, we are told that a Met Police investigation is underway. A man was interviewed under caution. That happened on the 23rd of August. So it was a curator that stole them. He put some things on eBay. Not all things did sell on eBay. So I'm assuming that some are being reclaimed from him. But also I'm assuming if the things that did sell via eBay, there's a fairly good online paper trail for that. So I'm assuming they're locating the places they've gone to and then taking them back from there. But I do think, as they're saying, they aren't giving full details because they're worried about causing issues with a potential criminal investigation going forward. And there is another conversation going on that is sort of unfolding currently. It started maybe a week or so ago, and that is about the ownership of images / the ownership of photographs of items taken in museums where photography is allowed. So historians and academics who go to museums take photographs of items and then include them in their doctoral thesis or a article, whether that's behind a paywall or not, and whether, or perhaps even for a book, or indeed for YouTube. And there are some museums that are very, very cagey and controlling about what goes out, thus hampering the access of people who aren't part of that institution to share their knowledge. And there are some that are very good. And there is somebody on Twitter who I will hopefully share next week, who is compiling a list of the heroes and villains, because there is when we're talking about owning items and being able to share knowledge of them, I think there's a conversation that can be had for sure. Stirling Castle. Oh, thank you very much. Lovely. Well, Liz, can we nominate that naughty curator for Git of the Year and Ultimate Ding Dong? At some point, I am going to have to find a way to open up nominations, because I definitely want the last history news of the year to not be a history news in its normal sense, but to be an award show for things. So I'm going to want suggestions for categories. And I'm also going to ask, probably on my community tab on YouTube, suggestions for categories and also nominees. So there we go. This was sent to me a number of times. And why I'm interested by this is because I thought that this conversation had already been had, but it's hitting the news like it's new. So maybe I missed something. But the history of syphilis being rewritten by a medieval skeleton. The basis of this is the belief that Columbus, in his interaction with the indigenous peoples of what was, quote, the New World, that was sexual in nature, and that the people who went with Columbus brought syphilis back to Europe. This has, to my knowledge, been challenged for quite a while, because there have been human remains found in medieval cemeteries in Europe from a pre-Columbian period, a pre-Columbian exploration period, that show clear signs of syphilis. And as we say here, there's paleopathologists examining European burial sites have found medieval bones and teeth that display signs of syphilis infection. And by teeth, they are referring to the teeth of people who have been born to individuals who have syphilis, because it shows congenital syphilis affects the teeth. So that's what they're saying. So it's not just syphilis infection. It has had time for there to be congenital syphilis. This disrupts the idea that it arrived in the 15th century. There's a team based in Marseille that has used DNA analysis to reveal evidence of the bacteria and the body's immunological reaction to it. This is in a skeleton buried in a chapel in Provence in the 7th or 8th century, which is the best evidence yet that syphilis or something related to it was infecting Europeans centuries before Columbus sailed, which I didn't think this was new news, but it's being presented as new news, so I'm going to share it. Oh, and Carve Felem said that there were Roman skeletons with signs of congenital syphilis. Would not surprise me. Don't know the article you're talking about. If we can do that as an update, if you do happen to come across that, if you wouldn't mind sending it to me or linking me to it, then I can add this as a further update for the next one. You think it was in Pompeii, saw it in a YouTube thing with Mary Beard. Interesting. If you find a link, if either of you can find a link to that, I will include it in our news review next time. And on the topic of repatriations, well, this is an update in regard to repatriation. We, as I'm sure we're all aware, we have talked about the Manhattan DA's office a lot. We have talked about the heroes in that DA's office. They now have some questions to answer of their own. An archaeologist by the name of Christos Tsirogiannis, whose name comes up a lot in relation to the Parthenon sculptures and also in relation to these finds. He is asserting and saying that a lot of the work done by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has been based upon his research and his work, and he has not, he feels, been given appropriate credit for this. Now, while I was seeing all of this news coming out of Manhattan DA's office, and I'm looking at Alvin Bragg's website, and it's barely even showing up, and I'm aware of the quantity of work that this must cause, and I'm like, well, there's got to be an incredible team, and clearly there is. And I understand that some of these roles are political in nature, that there's the possibility for elections down the road. I get that holding on to that position is important. And so taking as much of the responsibility for success is a valuable thing to do. But Christos says they're taking my work and presenting it as theirs. They're showing off with my academic work and not giving me credit. It's an abuse of my intellectual property, but now enough is enough. He said that he was only interested in acknowledgement of his research. He never requested payment. He said that he's lost patience after discovering that his original research was used in the DA's latest case without any credit. Even though he'd made it clear at the Antiquities Unit that the research came from his 2012 PhD thesis. And that is still at Cambridge University's library under restricted access until 2025 because it contains evidence that could help smugglers and could also therefore prevent the recovery of looted artifacts. So he can't publish it. And as an academic, publication is something that gets you tenure. It's something that gets you a job that allows you to be paid through the summer holidays. It gives you sick cover and parental leave. So if you can't publish and you're not getting full credit, that then shows the department how valuable you are. Because let's be clear, this kind of cachet would be valuable to a department, but he can't do that either. So I can see why he's annoyed. He said, this is a very big case, and the research linking it to particular smugglers is from my PhD. I had sent them the whole evidence, word by word, my analysis of the case, in order for them to have everything. For 5 years, I've been helping them, giving them evidence for free on dozens and dozens of cases. At least give me the credit that I deserve. It's utterly shameful. I'm speaking out to protect my colleagues, alerting them that their intellectual property will be abused. And this does not diminish the fact that the Manhattan DA's office has done incredible work. We are grateful for the repatriations and the prosecutions that have occurred. But this is desperately unfair. This does not cover them in glory. And I get that the glory it's all about the glory. He's right to speak out as far as I'm concerned. In the current climate, publication is everything. And I can only speak from in the UK, but with things like the REF and the TEF. So the REF is the Research Excellence Framework, and the TEF is the Teaching Excellence Framework. And with the REF, the publications that you have, and they are weighted. So publications in certain journals are worth more than an entire book. For example, it's wild. I don't really know how it works. Fortunately, it was never something that I was involved with. But I saw people go through it. It's madly stressful. Careers are built and lost upon it. If you are very, in quotes, refable, then you're the sort of person that gets promoted to professor before you're 40, because you can threaten to take your research for the ref to another institution that will make you a professor. Like this is your lobbying power. And to not have it is not good, I don't think. And I think this does to me make the DA's office, it makes them look petty and it makes them look small. And I don't like that. And this could have been an opportunity to show how well the different realms from law enforcement to the academy can work together. Because trust and believe, they are using scientists all the time. And they have their own in-house scientists. This is something, give them full credit. I said it a few times. Yes, absolutely. Publish or perish is the phrase. It's not particularly healthy in the academy, but yeah, I feel really bad for him. Apparently, The Guardian has contacted the DA's office for comment, and as of publication of this article, there hadn't been a response. We will see. If there is a response, I will, of course, update you all. This is an update. I think we talked about this last week, but now there's a better picture. The melting glacial ice in Norway has revealed this Bronze Age arrow, and what an incredible find. just to go back, it is possible. There's a potential that they don't realise how important publishing is. What I will say is that my understanding is that a DA will have had to go through quite a lot of advanced study and dealt with people who are, doing their masters, doing their doctorate. They will have met TAs. There's got to be an element to which how important publication is. There's got to be at least an element. The thing is, they did list the research team in the office. I saw press releases where they listed them. And I don't know why they haven't gotten so much of this is made possible because of the currently embargoed and unpublished research of, and then him, photo, we're so grateful. Like it just put it in the press release. Just put it in the press release. Yeah. I mean, I think it's possible that they don't quite realise, but if they were told, they should have quickly stepped up, is my opinion. So this Bronze Age arrow is a fabulous find, and I'm very grateful that we have it. As with all things, there's good and there's bad. Because why have we been able to find it? Because the ice has melted. And why has the ice melted, friends? That's a no bueno. The Secrets of the Ice research team has so far mapped 66 ice sites and recovered approximately 4,000 finds. They have found hunting gear and tools, textile remnants, transportation equipment, and clothing materials. They found biological specimens such as antlers, bones, and dung. And I'm not a kind of bioarchaeologist in any way. But there's going to be stuff in the permafrost, isn't there? There's going to be germies in the permafrost that we don't need to be releasing, do we? As global warming, the end of this reads, as global warming transforms Norway's mountainous landscape, Finstad Plough and their fellow glacier archaeologists are rushing to collect exposed artefacts which continue to get older as the ice continues to melt. Yes. Arrows with shell arrowheads only became known to Europe when they started melting out of the ice in Norway. I mean, I'm glad that we get to see them because look how preserved it is. But it got to be that preserved because there was ice there for all that time. And so that also kind of points at how unprecedented this melt might arguably be. Yep. Fabric to survive, for binding to survive. Yeah. I really hope you're right. I beg of you to be right. I beg, please let you be right. But they're also, these are the people, they saw Jurassic Park and thought, sign me up, didn't they? Didn't they? So I worry they might be like, oh, we found this bacteria. Let's see what we can do with it in case we might need a future vaccine for it. Let's bring it back to life, just in case he's... just in case he's... maybe I'm too afraid of things. I'm very afraid of that, though. Very afraid. Another update here. They have identified the runesmith who carved the yelling. I believe it's yelling. It could be gelling. The yelling stone runes. They have used 3D scans to figure out who carved these runes. These in Denmark. And they have studied the angle of the chiseled groove, the distance between them, and so they can make comparison with other rune stones, such as the Laborg runestone, which is about 30 kilometers southwest of Yelling. I've just seen this comment. Sorry, I was having a moment of existential dread. That's suddenly sweaty all over. That feels uncomfortable. I want to say, can you send me that article? But at the same time, do you know what? That's nightmare fuel for me. I don't need to do it. Steve, you were yelling early this summer. It's a fantastic landscape in a church. So if anybody's got plans to go nearby, then this sounds fun. Worms. You know what? I'm just going to have to stop talking about worms for a second because it's making me feel unusual. So the analysis has revealed that this Leiborg runestone has the same carving technique. This has the Leiborg stone has the inscription Ravanugatu carved these runes after Thyra, his queen. So Queen Thyra is mentioned in 2 Yelling stones as the mother of Harold Bluetooth, wife of Gormjord. These are the best names. I need to study more about Denmark and Penitent of Denmark. Thyra's name is also mentioned in 2 other runestones, that of Leiborg, carved by Ravanugatu in honour of Thyra, his queen, and that of pt.1, which bears the inscription Ravanugatu and Fundin and Lilpi, and the 3 made the stop of Thyra. According to researchers, quote, the discovery in itself is interesting because it can link another person to the Yelling dynasty, but it's especially interesting because the realization brings with it another startling revelation. This is explained by Elizabeth Emer, a runologist and senior researcher at the National Museum. It's an absolutely incredible discovery that we now know the name of the rune maker behind the Yelling stone. But what makes the discovery even wilder is that we know Ravanugatu's boss. It is Queen Thyra from Yelling, i.e. Harold Bluetooth's mother. There can no longer be much doubt about that, and that puts the discovery into a completely different light. I also want a Viking name. I think it would be cool. I mean, also, I feel like I look like I could destroy your village. I feel shield maideny on occasions. So, I want... Yeah, Scarlett, you did. And so much so that I actually couldn't put it in this. I genuinely couldn't. If I get brave, I'll put it in next week. It was about a massive spider. I found it very upsetting. But I can't talk about it. It upset me too much. I can't. I'll get brave and I'll do it next time, I promise. I'm sorry, I chickened out this time. Chickens. I'm sorry, I chickened out. I'm sorry. I'll be brave next time. I promise. Historians are in a race to find the Great Lakes shipwrecks before quagga mussels, if I was to pronounce that wrong, I apologise, quagga mussels destroy the site. These are finger-sized mollusks with voracious appetite that have apparently become the dominant invasive species in the lower Great Lakes, according to in the last 30 years. This is according to biologists. They have covered virtually every shipwreck and downed plane. What is going on in the Great Lakes? Side note, every shipwreck and downed plane in the lakes, except Lake Superior, they burrow into wooden vessels, building upon themselves in layers so thick they will eventually crush walls and decks. They produce an acid that can corrode steel and iron ships, and no one has found a way to stop them. A marine archaeologist, Wayne Lusardi, is pushing to raise more of a World War II plane that was flown by a Tuskegee airman that crashed in 1944. Quagga mussels are native to Russia and the Ukraine. They were found in the Great Lakes in 1989. So someone put them in there then. This is like when they put grey squirrels, and the grey squirrels have moidered all of our native red squirrels. Scientists believe the creatures arrived via ballast dumps from, I don't know what that means, transoceanic freighters making their way to Great Lakes ports. So somebody was lazy and made a problem.
Dump the water.
Oh, you dump
waste from that.
Oh, you dump the water waste off of a boat. My husband worked in shipping once upon a time, so he knows what those phrases mean. Thank you, darling. After 30 years of colonisation, quaggas have displaced zebra mussels as the dominant mussel in the Great Lakes. Zebras, or if you're American, zebras, make up 98% of mussels in Lake Michigan in 2000, according to the University of California Riverside Center for Invasive Species Research. 5 years later, the quaggas represented 97.7%. For wooden and metal ships, the quagga's success has translated into overwhelming destruction. Oh, thank you. I mispronounced it. It's pronounced Tura. Thank you. I will remember that for the future. I think, and I could be wrong, I do believe that there are still some red squirrels in some places, but they have been massively overridden by the grey squirrels. And the red squirrels are so pretty. So what, they're kind of like a filterer. They are, aren't they? Because they mussels filter things. But it would be a shame to lose all of the fines. And the thing is, this is going to be expensive because getting it out of the water, then you've got to do what you've got to Mary Rose it, basically. So you've got to slowly dry it out so that it doesn't fall apart as it dries. So we shall see. We shall see. I thought it was Scotland. I didn't want to say it in case I was wrong. You can find red squirrels in the Wirral in Scotland. I thought there were still some in Scotland, but I remember that being when I was a child. I'm like, maybe they've all died since I was a child. But no, so there are still some there. Thank you. This is another image, some more pictures of the find, that many millennia old wooden find that was found. They have said that the structure they found is like Lincoln logs, which I believe is an American toy. I don't know what Lincoln logs are because we don't have them here, or if we do, I've never seen them. So it's a children building toy that where miniature logs lock together using square notches. I don't know what that is, but apparently, if you know, this is what the structure they found is, and they have dated it now to 460,000 years ago. They have determined that the 4 wooden tools, a wedge, a digging stick, a cut log, and a knotted branch, go back 324,000 years. They don't know which species of ancient human made this structure and wooden tools, but they say it's unlikely to have been our own, because the earliest Homo sapien fossils date from around 300,000 years ago and were found in what is now Israel. Duller said that the complexity of this structure suggests the people that made it were cognitively sophisticated and were able to make and execute a complex plan, something that likely required the use of language. An archaeologist, Dr. Annemieke Milks, a postdoctoral research fellow at Reading, wrote a commentary published alongside the research that the discovery revealed when people started to structurally alter the planet for their own benefit. The paper also showed that material widely used in the present day played a long suspected and important role in the Stone Age. Studies such as this one highlight the role of the most humble materials in the human story. Oh, I've been sent an email. I've been sent an email about Lincoln logs. Hang on, I'm just gonna have a little look at it. Hold, please. And I'm also seeing the Ravelry group link. The Carve Felem sent me an article about syphilis in ancient Pompeii, so we're talking about that next time. And I've got a Wikipedia link. Never seen these in my life. Never seen a Lincoln log in my life. These are cool. Why don't we have these? Look really fun. My son would love these. They're cool. They look really fun. I'm going to see if I can find some because he likes to build things. He likes castles mostly. Scarlett, they're like just long bits of plastic now that you can build like a small log cabin out of. That's so fun. Another update from Scotland to Canada, that totem pole we talked about is finally returning home, and we have been told that it's going to be, we can see it here being moved. It must have been hard work moving this. It's going to be permanently on display at the Niska Museum. This is a modern building with a stunning glass facade surrounded by snow-capped mountains. That sounds delightful. She'll have to have a trip. They are now discussing it in this way because they are talking about how this return of this item has caught the attention of anthropologist and museum repatriation expert Chip Colwell, pointing out, given how prominently it was displayed in the Scottish Museum and its significance to the Niska nation, it going home is no small matter. Mr. Colwell said that this creates new possibilities for what museums can do themselves to repair the harms of colonialism. We've seen Indigenous peoples becoming highly persuasive in convincing museums about how important these items are to them and how often they were taken without consent. He says he's now watching to see whether repatriation requests will be successful, such as Nigeria's request for the Benin bronzes, Greece's ask for the Elgin marbles, both of which are housed at the British Museum. He says he is optimistic about it. Quote, the museum world and most societies have recognised the need for repatriation as part of what it means to be a 21st century museum. I wholeheartedly agree. The theft of ritual items was part of a cultural genocide, he says, and being able to get the items back is fundamental to the survival of these Indigenous people. I bet you I can find Lincoln logs. I bet you I can get them from somewhere. That would be the dream. They look so cool. They look so cool. We're on to repatriations now. The Republic of Yemen and New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art have come to an agreement over artifacts. They've announced that there's going to be a custodial deal over 2 looted Yemeni artifacts. The Met is going to retain custody over the objects at the request of Yemeni officials, but officially Yemen has regained ownership of the pieces. The CEO of the Met has said that the museum is honoured to return the property to Yemen while maintaining custodial status. And we talked about this last time, that repatriation doesn't necessarily immediately mean return. This is a transfer of ownership, a recognition of where a thing properly belongs, its place of origin, and who lays claim to it, who gets to be involved in the description that sits beside it, who gets to recall it when they want. It's important. These artifacts were found near the ancient city of Marib in 1984, and they date back to the 3rd millennium BCE. The earliest historical records in Yemen reference the Sabian civilization, better known from the biblical literature as Sheba. The Sabians rose to power in southeast Arabia sometime during the 1st millennium BCE, and Marib was their capital city. These artifacts appear to predate any records from that civilization. We are told, quote, it's a difficult time to send artifacts back because the museums are still trying to evaluate what the extent of the damage has been after so many years of bombardment. This agreement comes just months after the Met announced a push to hire more provenance researchers. In early May, the museum acknowledged the need to more thoroughly investigate the origins of its artworks. So there was an investigation by ProPublica that we talked about that found that only 15% of Native American work that has been donated or loaned to the museum and it was donated or loaned not by the communities but by the noted art collector Charles and Valerie Dyker, had solid or complete ownership histories. We are told it's good news, assuming the Met will consult with the tribes. There's a wealth of information to be had. So these conversations, they are changing museum practice. That's undeniable. They are going to, the face of heritage going forward, I think, is going to be in 20 years from now. I firmly believe we're going to look back on these conversations. We're going to look back on people's reticence to repatriate, and we're going to think it looks incredibly small-minded and closed-minded. It is not 2 decades from now, we're going to be in a position where we see things as, I think, a more global collection in terms of where they can go, who can look at them. I think things are going to be online, but in term ownership is, for me, going to be about narratives and shaping those narratives and telling those stories. And there's going to be a nominal ownership, and who gets to determine the story that surrounds it and the way it's told is going to be based upon that notion of repatriated ownership. I think that's the way it's going to look. There are going to be incredible 3D models. We're going to be experiencing things in 3 and 4 dimensions, in augmented reality, in VR. We're going to be able to smell, touch, and taste things, possibly sat in our own homes. Maybe not in 20 years, but soon enough. And all of these conversations are going to feel very, very grabby and selfish and jealous on the behalf of the people who aren't looking to share the objects themselves, who aren't looking to repatriate the objects, but also who aren't looking to share the images as something that should be freely accessible. That's the thing. That's my prediction. I've been wrong before. I may be wrong again, but that's how I think it's going to be. These conversations are going to look terribly old-fashioned in a few years' time. A sacred Ethiopian tablet that was looted by the British at the Battle of Magdala has been restituted. A sacred tablet stolen by British troops during the 1868 Battle of Magdala in Ethiopia was restituted in a service to church in London on Monday before this report came out. Also known as a tablet, the object is a symbolic representation of the Ark of the Covenant for the Ethiopian Christian Church. The tablet was returned at St Mary of Debre Sion in Battersea. It was privately owned. Only clergy members are allowed to see the tablet according to Ethiopian Christian belief. As such, the tablet was wrapped in an ornate cloth and presented to a crowd of roughly 1,500 attendees. The expectation is that it's going to go back to Ethiopia. Thank you. My husband just brought me a cup of tea. It's very kind of you. A University College London lecturer spotted the tablet in an online sale. When he failed to convince the seller to return it directly to Ethiopia, he purchased the tablet with the goal of safely returning it. The restitution was organised by London's Scheherazade Foundation. The restitution of this tablet could lead to greater scrutiny being directed towards the British Museum, which holds 11 similar objects in its collection, the largest holdings of any kind in the UK. Per tradition, the British Museum's tablets are hidden in a highly secure basement storeroom where even the curators cannot view them. The church's priests, however, are allowed to see them, with the future goal of lending them to an Ethiopian Orthodox church in Great Britain. Give them back. Give them back. Give them back. It's not lending, it's repatriating. You might have the tools and techniques to take care of them, and you can offer to do that pro bono. Give them back. I sometimes feels like to me I'm talking to a 3-year-old, and having one, I know what I'm talking about here. It's a case of you have played with somebody else's toy that they kindly gave you or you snatched. You have played with it. Now it's time to go home. The lending is over. The snatching is over. Give it back. Give it back. Stop. You have so many toys at home. This is not how we share. This is not how we share. I am going to look at Lincoln Logs, born in a log cabin. Big Ben was built for logs. So I'm going to look into that. Thank you very much, Linda. $1,294 pre-Columbian artifacts have been repatriated by a California museum to Mexico. This has happened at a ceremony at the San Bernardino County Museum in Redlands, California. It happened on the 15th of September. There are statuettes, wind instruments, necklaces, ceramic and copper bells, arrowheads, and burial remains. And as part of the ceremony, they returned to the Mexican consul in San Bernardino. And the restitution was a coordinated effort between the Mexican Ministries of Foreign Affairs under the National Institute of Anthropology and History. This event coincided with Mexican Independence Day and also the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month. This is not the first time that this museum has repatriated culturally significant objects. In 2021, they returned dozens of artifacts to the San Manuel Band of Mission Serrano Indians. This had been acquired without proper provenance records in the 1980s. And I don't know her, but she sounds delightful. And I feel like we would be friends. Pardon? I'm gonna need some follow up on that. No, the Brits certainly weren't the only ones that stashed things. But let us also remember, if we look at the other snatchy nations, for example, the repatriation work being done on a state level by Germany, on a state level by France, they're doing the thing. They're apologizing for the thing. The Vatican is apologizing and sending the things back. The secret squirrel Vatican is sending the things back. So they weren't the only ones that snatched, but they are the only ones that are holding on to. So as a part of Mexican President's Andrés Manuel López Obrador's ongoing My Heritage is Not for Sale campaign to recover national cultural heritage objects, more than 11,500 pieces have been returned to Mexico since 2018. A recent example of this includes the sale of pre-Columbian objects at a French auction house. We have one family's battle to be reunited with art looted by the Nazis, which we go all the way back to 2010. An unexpected phone call from an American attorney turned Claire Gimpel's world on its axis. This lawyer, who works for a firm that recovers artwork looted by the Nazis, said that he'd been speaking to a British scholar who'd come across the name of her grandfather, a French Jewish resistance fighter killed in a German concentration camp. No, they just need to return some. That's the problem. The other statue places have started the returns process, and they have shown it, and it has been state sanctioned, and presidents of that nation have got involved. That is the difference. Again, this is sort of what I was talking about at the top of the video. If a conversation like this makes those individuals feel personally attacked, I would say they need to perhaps address their own worldview, their own belief system, and think about why they have put themselves in the position of the person whose behavior is being called out, rather than in the position of the people who are trying to call it out or who want the behaviour to stop. Of the three things that you could occupy, why is this the one that you've picked? Why is this the one that you're showing allegiance and fealty to? And why is this the one you're taking umbrage with? It's very odd to me, because in the world where we're talking about repatriating items, I position myself with the people who are working towards that repatriation, who want to have those conversations. I don't see it as a personal attack because a museum in my country has failed to repatriate. I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Oh, there we go. Protestation often accused because persons simply are not knowledgeable about the artifact's origin. Their lack of expertise, not a reflection towards exclusive ownership. I think there's provenance has been slapdash, so there is that every time it comes up, there is an awkwardness about the fact that the provenance is so diabolical, and that's embarrassing. But again, a lot of that is curation of the past, and if you're part of fixing it, if you recognize the problem, provide the fix. I mean, it's not even about a groveling apology. In some cases, an apology is necessary, but it's not even always about a groveling apology. It's about going, this is unacceptable. This has been happening for centuries. We need to fix it. I don't. No one's looking for people to like flagellate themselves. That's not what's happening. So this lady's grandfather was a French Jewish resistance fighter who was murdered in a concentration camp. This article is really interesting, but the bit that I've picked out that I think is really, really interesting is how difficult this process is, and how long these processes of repatriation can take. Because this is something that started in 2010, clearly. A photograph taken in René, this is the grandfather's Paris living room, was a critical piece of evidence. The photograph was taken between 1960 and 1933, and it showed the three paintings, the Delaine paintings in question, hanging on the wall. This was the proof that the Paris Criminal Court required to corroborate that he had once owned them. Next, they've got to prove that it's stolen. So they then went through the family archives, and the heirs adamant that these paintings were sold under duress due to the Vichy regime's anti-Semitic policies, which left René in need of money. But with no invoice or deed of sale, the French Ministry of Culture and the two museums argued this evidence was insufficient. Claire, the granddaughter, said there's no deed of sale because the sales were done under the table. So then the Paris Criminal Court in 2019 ruled in favour of the French government and the museums, stating that proof that the three paintings were forcibly sold or confiscated could not be established with a certainty. The French Court of Appeals then overturned this decision a year later, because according to a letter dating from 1941 found in the family archives, René instructed his housekeeper to, quote, look after my friend Daran, who is a valuable man and must not be let down. The court then interpreted this as a request to sell the paintings. Then the Court of Appeals wrote that there are precise, serious and concordant indications that the Derain paintings were illegally taken or purchased under duress, making the sale null and void. This is apparently the first time the court had ruled that families seeking restitution should not be expected to produce evidence that was too difficult to obtain, considering the context in which the pieces were taken. Fast forward to 2020, 7 years after the fight began, they are finally reunited with the three Derain paintings. When asked by CNN why it had taken so long, the Troyes Museum said that since the paintings are part of national collections, they, quote, could not be returned to the Gimpel heirs without a court ruling. The city of Marseille said, quote, the return of Derain's work was one of the first measures taken by the mayor of Marseille at the start of his term in 2020, although with a court ruling in place, the mayor had been compelled to do so. We are told that despite this lengthy legal battle, the heirs were somewhat lucky that they could rely on extensive family archives, because artworks that end up in museums are easier to track down. And this is apparently not always the case, I think understandably, for Jewish families who are trying to recover their family's stolen art. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I would probably lean in that direction also. I think that if you make it unsafe for a person to live and work in their home because of your policies, you leave them no choice but to sell their possessions to try and make ends meet or to try and get away. And when you do that, any sale of that property is happening under duress. Now we are going on to new news, and these are some camels. A mysterious and beautifully carved life-sized camels found in the Saudi Arabian desert. But archaeologists don't know who or why or even necessarily quite when they were created. This is on a rock outcropping. And apparently these carvings, it's hard to tell by the picture, but apparently the carvings are life-size. And these are wild camels, a now extinct species that once roamed this particular part of the Arabian Peninsula. They roamed there thousands of years ago, but never even got a scientific name. The site, named Shalott, has been recognised by other archaeologists for some time. This is the first time that these carvings had been noticed. These are highly naturalistic carvings. Apparently, the animal's fur and also their sex have been depicted. Interestingly, apparently, most of these carved camels are male. Some of the carvings contain camels showing their dulla. I didn't know camels had a dulla. I don't know what a dulla is. Apparently, though, according to this, it's an organ that hangs out of a male camel's mouth that's used to attract females. So I'm assuming, I don't know what it is. This dulla, it's apparently not a tongue. They would say it was a tongue, right? So it's something else. Never seen one. The hypothesis is that this artwork was made during mating season. This is known as the rut, and it occurs between November and March. The feral camels hadn't molted their fur yet and still had their winter hair. What? It's part of their stomach. See, when I first read it, I will Google it. I will Google it. But when I first read it, I thought they were talking about their tongue. And having read it in this news stream now, I'm like, it's different to the tongue, isn't it? Dulla, camel. It doesn't have a picture, though. No. It's just camels' faces. I can't see a picture of it. So, yeah, I could Google it, but I can't find a picture of it. I will look. Everyone told me not to Google it. More research is needed to figure out the significance of the site. Apparently, there's no known water source, so there might have been. Oh, hello. Oh, my husband, who spent some time where there are camels, has said that the dulla has a dual purpose. It attracts a mate, but also regulates body temperature. Darling, if you can send me a picture of that, I would like you to put that in the group, in my little phone chat. The things that he sends me. So apparently there is no known water source here, so there must have been something else that brought people there. Perhaps it was a good stopping point on their way to another location. They do point out that it must have been an important location. He's currently tired. He just said, you don't know if they're overheating or randy. And I suppose one you'd want to avoid more than the other. Stonehenge, new discovery at Stonehenge. A team from Aberystwyth University have discovered a secret about stone 80, which is also known as the altar stone. If he sends me... He just sent me, Paige, your wish has been granted. Oh, I was somehow not expecting that. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, that's made me want to cry. If I saw that coming out of a camel, I'd immediately call a vet or maybe a priest. I don't like it. I wasn't expecting it to be like that. Oh Lord. Okay, so stone 80, also known as the altar stone. The new work has suggested that it didn't come from the the same oh dear, the same place as the other stones, but apparently a source about 140 miles away from Stonehenge. He's just texted me going, "How you doing?" I keep looking at it. I'm gonna have to just not for a second. I know. I know you all told me. I know you told me. It's just derailed my life. That's derailed my life. It's one of those moments. I'm gonna look back on this moment. I'm gonna look back at if it's having this effect on me, I wish I hadn't. I wish I hadn't. I've broken the rule. I shouldn't have Googled it. I shouldn't have Googled it. Oh, Manda. I've just seen what a camel's dulla looks like. That's what's happened, and it's made me want to jump out my window. Don't Google it. Don't Google it. Okay, we're going to carry on. We're going to talk about a stone. Stonehenge's stone. The Stonehenge altar stone was probably not sourced from the old red sandstone of the Anglo-Welsh basin. The altar stone at Stonehenge is a unique stone among the blue stones of Stonehenge due to its sandstone composition. These words are hard for me for some reason. It contrasts with the predominantly igneous blue stones forming the inner circle of Stonehenge. Previous theories suggested that the altar stone originated from the old red sandstone formation of West Wales. This formation was created about 4 million years ago when what is today Europe and North America collided. Portions of the formation can be found both on both sides of the Atlantic, as far north as Greenland and Norway. So to investigate the origin of the altar stone, the researchers conducted various analyses. They did an optical petrography, portable XRF analysis, automated SEM EDS analysis, don't know what any of these things are, and a Raman spectroscopy. This is on samples from the old red sandstone formation within the Anglo-Welsh basin, and they found that the altar stone has a high barium content, which distinguishes it from most other basin and bluestone samples. So the altar stone's barium content, I think it's barium, isn't it? It's unusual. So while there are a few basin formation samples that match its composition, they are discounted because they have contrasting mineralogies. The researchers proposed, based on their study, that the altar stone should be declassified as a bluestone, which breaks the link to the Minad Prezeli derived bluestones of Stonehenge. And if correct, the search for the altar stone's origin has just begun. So hopefully we'll find out more. Look at these. Oldest shoe in Europe found in a bat cave. These shoes woven from grass. The survival of this is incredible, thought to be around 6,000 years old. And they were found in a hall of ancient objects discovered in a bat cave in Spain that was plundered by miners in the 19th century. They've now been analysed in a new study, and they are crediting low humidity and cool winds in the cave for this incredible preservation. Researchers have also been able to analyse a basket and a set of tools. These, quote, are the oldest and best preserved set of plant fibre materials in southern Europe so far. That had to go up. Love that comment. Yes. No, Bat cave. Love it. The technological diversity and treatment of raw materials documented highlights the skill of prehistoric communities. Some objects in the set, we are told, date back 9,000 years. The sandals analysed used a different type of grass in their structure, but also included other materials such as leather and lime. They date to the Neolithic period, making them older than the 5,500-year-old leather shoes that were discovered in a cave in Armenia in 2008. This cave was first accessed in 1831 by a landowner who collected guano from bats to make fertilizer. Then 2 decades later, it was used by miners who, while there, discovered a gallery that held partially mummified corpses, baskets, wooden tools, and among others, wild boar's teeth and a unique golden diadem. How cool is this? Lol. Loving the puns. Loving the puns. I mean, it is quite amazing that, I mean, I knew that the espadrille was old, but did anybody think we would have 6,000 years old? Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? As a technique. How cool is that, though? Now, this next one, and before I show it on screen, when I was sent this, I thought that somebody was sending me a picture of a ding-dong. And I just want to say, let me know in the comments, in the chat, if you can see why I thought so. I'm going to give you a little second. Here's the news item. The first thing that pops up with a picture. Tell me that does not look like the carving, at first glance, of an engorged phallus. It's not. I don't think it is. Apparently not. That's not what they're saying anyway. This is a decorated stela found in the 3,000-year-old funerary complex of Las Capelanias. This is in Spain. It's a 3,000-year-old necropolis featuring funerary monuments, burial mounds, stone cists, and cremation pits. They have discovered this decorated stela. It's the third stela found at the site and the second one that's still intact. Thank you for all agreeing with me. Nightmare fuel and a phallus. The end. Right, I was like, is this a ding dong news? Is it? I don't think it is. I don't think it. Hey, correct. Correct. I'm not even going to contest it. According to researchers, the stela was likely placed as a territorial marker for funerary monuments within the most important natural pathways linking the two main river basins. So what we're actually seeing there is the layout of a graveyard. It's the map for the burial site, is what they seem to be saying, allegedly. And it exhibits distinctive features, including or maybe they're saying it's a person as well. I don't know. The recently discovered stela exhibits distinctive features, including what appears to be a necklace or a headdress. I don't know. I mean, maybe. So potentially it represents a woman. because that usually connects to a woman. I don't know why it's territorial then. I assume when this is a territorial marker, it's a map, but apparently not. This is oddly worded, and I did find it quite confusing. Conversely, attributes typically encountered on stelae known as warrior stelae are depictions of swords linked to male representations. This feels like a male representation to me. This categorization of the sand iconography, which might be related to specific societal roles, has been primarily derived from a limited number of stelae displaying sexual characteristics. Isn't that what this is? They don't seem to be saying, I'm like, surely it's a ding dong. Okay. Apparently it combines traits of headdress and warrior types. It's one of those magic eyes we had as kids. I don't know. Showing that the social roles depicted by those standardized iconographies were more fluid than previously thought. Oh, hang on. As the new stelae includes male genitalia. So where's the headdress then? As the new stelae also includes male genitalia, it demonstrates these social roles were not restricted to a specific gender, but could be associated with different genders. So I don't know. Is it a marker of a boundary? Is it got a headdress? Is it genitalia? Is it genitalia in a headdress? Is it a winky in a hat? Don't know what this is. And I feel like a child for laughing. I'm hoping there's gonna be an update. I'll be honest with you, Steve. It was the best article picture they had. Maybe better ones have come out since. Maybe not clear, unclear. It says it incorporates. It includes male genitalia. It says it includes it. To me, that is the focus. The PP in a hat. I don't know. I mean, it could be. But where's genitalia? I don't know. I'm going to need to investigate further. It's what's happened. They built their gravesite to look like a ding dong in a headdress, and they made a map of it. Makes sense. Makes sense to me. I have no idea what's happening. I liked this. A Scythian scepter made in bone, and I'm pretty sure it's not clear in the article, but I did read it, and I'm pretty sure that this is not a human bone, which is why I'm showing it. This is from the 5th century BCE, and it belonged to a Scythian warlord. Found in excavations in the prehistoric salt production and urban centre in northeast Bulgaria. The Scythians were a steppe and semi-steppe people who arrived on the Danube in the 7th century BCE. The team doing this archaeological investigation is led by Professor Vasil Nikolov, and this scepter was found in a grave. Nikolov told the Bulgarian news agency that Scythian graves are very rare in northeastern Bulgaria. There's just 4 or 5 have been discovered so far. The excavated pit is different from those found so far because the shape of the Scythian warrior's grave resembles a boot with a hollowed out part. Apparently excavated in later times, people saw the skull and upper part of the man's skeleton missing today and stopped immediately. Respect for ancestral graves, we're told, was very important for Scythians. Anyone who damaged one of these tombs would have harmed the Scythians. So perhaps people who dug the grave out realised the person lying in there was an important Scythian and left the grave without looting. What's now been found is the bone scepter, described as, quote, an incredible achievement of art for the time. The Scythians had exceptional traditions in the art of bone carving. This scepter is 39 centimetres long. The handle is made of 2 pieces of bone glued together. The connection between the head and the handle of the scepter is precisely crafted. From one side, it looks like the beak of an eagle. On the other, the craftsman has carved an anthropomorphic image on which the beak looks like a hat. The scepter is proof of the skills of the masters. And Nikolov noted that it probably belonged to a military commander of a small military unit. They think they have found a courtesan's tomb during excavations in the Via Hebron in Jerusalem. This burial dates from the late 4th to early 3rd century BCE. The cremated remains of a young woman were discovered next to a rare, perfectly preserved box of mirrors in this burial cave. And oh no. Okay, yep, I've seen it. No, not today. We're not playing that game. Done. Sorry. Yes. Liz, saw. Thank you. Didn't really know what was going on. Blocked. They are blocked. Thank you for pointing it out. They're done. They're gone. Yes, if you do see that again, just flag it to me and I will see it when I see it in the chat. I will deal with it. Not having any of that nonsense. So a box of mirrors in a burial cave in the Jerusalem area, which is a rare piece of evidence from the Hellenistic period. So there were also a number of bent iron nails found next to the bones. And this is, next to the child woman's bones, a rare type of folding bronze mirror box. They think that the woman was a companion / courtesan known as a hetaria who accompanied senior military personnel or a Hellenistic government official during Alexander the Great's campaigns, or more likely during the wars of the Diadochi, which was at the wars of Alexander's successors. The researchers note that this offering of folding box mirrors were documented in tombs and temples in the Greco-Hellenistic world, and it's a clear indication of a gendered artifact that is associated with Greek women. These mirrors were usually decorated with engravings or magnificent reliefs of idealized female figures or goddesses, particularly Aphrodite, I think, unsurprisingly. The question then comes from it, the researchers say, what is the tomb of a Greek woman doing on the highway leading to Jerusalem, far from any site or settlement of the period? This tomb intrigued them, also in light of the fact that the archaeological information regarding Jerusalem and its surroundings in the early Hellenistic period is very scarce. So they set out to solve the riddle. The fact there was no settlement near the cave indicates that this is a tomb of a Greek woman who accompanied this senior military person or government official and was buried by the roadside. Quote, bronze mirrors like the one found were considered to be an expensive luxury item, and they could come into the possession of Greek women in 2 ways: part of the dowry ahead of a wedding, or as a gift given by men to their hetarii. As such, the mirror symbolized, among other things, the connection as well as the intimate relations between clients and the hetarii. They formed a part of Greek social institution in the framework of which women, similar to Japanese geishas, provided social escort services, not necessarily only or mainly sexual services. Some of them became common law spouses to the rulers and generals and famous intellectuals. These hetarii held literary salons, served as muses for the most famous works of sculpture and painting, and were even displayed in temples. There's going to be a follow-up study in the future in which researchers intend to gain a more pinpointed data regarding the origin of the mirror's production in an attempt to shed additional light on the woman's background, perhaps even the person that she accompanied. How cool is that? Really interesting. Archaeologists unearthed the largest cemetery ever discovered in Gaza and find a rare lead sarcophagi. Sorry, more than one. Rare lead sarcophagi, plural. Palestinian workers in the Gaza Strip have found dozens of ancient graves, including 2 sarcophagi made of lead in a Roman-era cemetery, dating back some 2,000 years. They came across the site last year during the construction of an Egyptian-founded housing project. Since then, crews have been working to excavate the 2,700 square metre site with the support of French experts. It's become a gold mine for archaeologists hoping to understand more about the Gaza Strip. This coastal enclave, home to some 2.3 million people, has a rich history stemming from its location on ancient trade routes between Egypt and the Levant. But of course, there is a number of factors: the Israeli occupation, the 16-year takeover by Hamas, and also rapid urban growth, all of which have made doing archaeological work on the site very difficult. So they have found 60 graves at the site in January. It's a major finding. That number has now swelled to 135. So far, researchers have studied over 100 of the graves. All of these tombs have been almost already been excavated and have revealed a huge amount of information about the cultural material, but also about the state of health of the population and pathologies from which this population may have suffered. The sarcophagi made of lead, one of which features ornate grape leaves, the other has images of dolphins. They are named to be exceptional finds. I'm seeing some mention of the conflict that's going on. Just, it would be, tensions are so heightened, so I'm not going to speak anything other than to say I feel nothing but grief at the loss of life and violence, and I hope that peace will be reached in some way, in somehow, before anybody else has to lose their life. And the threat to archaeology is real and present, and it is certainly something that I care about. But with what's happening, the fear for me is for the people. So this discovery of less sarcophagi, we're told, is the first here in Gaza. And given the rarity of these tombs, it's thought that social elites may have been buried there. And they think that the cemetery may actually have been located in a city because Romans used to place the cemeteries near city centres. The skeletons discovered at the site are being sent out for additional analysis, and they are then going to return to the Ministry of Antiques and Tourism in Gaza. And it's been said that the territory needs a dedicated team to oversee the ongoing archaeological activity in Gaza because Gazans deserve to tell their stories. Quote, Gaza boasts a plethora of potential archaeological sites, but monitoring each one, given the rapid pace of development, is no small feat. Yeah, it's an awful lot of archaeology. "2,000-year-old eyeshadow. How cool is this? Found in Turkey. Rare makeup products in 10 different colours, all sorts of hair accessories and jewellery have been found in Turkey. This is in the Western Anatolia River. This city, we're told, was rediscovered by European travellers in 1824 and then surveyed and identified between the years 1830 and 1840. Aizanoi is one of the most significant cities of the Roman period, with a Zeus temple and the complex of Stadium Theatre and Macellum. Look at this eyeshadow. Isn't it cool? The excavations have been conducted east of the Temple of Zeus. They found the remnants of a cosmetics and jewellery shop while excavating the 2,000-year-old shops in the ancient city's marketplace. We found the shop sold perfume, jewellery and makeup products. They found blusher and eyeshadow in the excavations. They found that Romans stored their eyeshadows and blushes in oyster shells. They found numerous oyster shells in the shop they were carrying out excavations in. I don't know. I thought cochineal came up red. And to me, I don't know if this, I couldn't find out whether this photograph has been manipulated in some way to look this sort of hot Barbie pink colour. I mean, in the summer of Barbie, this news item should have come out earlier. This is like so Barbie-tastic. What a beautiful colour, though, as well. Incredible. Oh, sorry, I should have manned at this is from the previous one. The remains are being sent out of Gaza for additional analysis, is what the news item says. I don't know which lab they're going to. I mean, I wasn't necessarily going to try it on, but a colour like that, I'd enjoy that as a nail varnish. Actually, I think that'd be a really cool nail varnish. Cochineal is a red dye, but frequently oxidizes to a burnt orange. So this, to me, can't be a cochineal because that looks neither red nor burnt orange. That, to me, is very obviously hot pink. Amanda points out the ancient Romans wouldn't have had access to cochineal. Interesting. I'm going to look into how dyes and things happen. I mean, I mostly know about things for like dyeing clothes, like woad, etc. But yes, I wonder what this is made from. We also have Turkish archaeologists have uncovered a long-rumoured subterranean city that was used as a sanctuary during the Roman period. They have found a complex kitted out with stoves, lamps, wells, and ventilation systems. Turkey has long been known for its labyrinth of underground cities, and they think they've now found the largest one yet. So cool. Quote, among our discoveries this year, we have a very wide corridor which can be likened to a main street. On the sides of this corridor, there are numerous galleries. There are tunnels and corridors connecting these galleries. During surface surveys, local elders mentioned they'd explored this place as children and described it as a very large underground city. This year, we realised that half of what they described turned out to be true. Yeah, because we have a bright red dye that comes from animals. I don't know what it's called. That's in the medieval period. I don't know what it's called. For not vermilion. I'm not going to make it up. I'm going to look into it. Kermes. Yes. Kermes. That rings a bell. I've heard vermilion as well. I've heard that as well. I should look into dyes. I'm going to do a thing on dyes, I think. We are told there's many more underground cities of varying size in the nearby area. There is excavation work being carried out thanks to a partnership between Turkey's Ministry of Culture and Tourism and the Sarono municipality in the district of Konya, and it's been ongoing for the past 2 years. So we are presumably going to find out more as this study continues, and we will learn what's going on down there. Thank you, Madder. Kermes if you had money, Rose Madder if you didn't. So there's always a cheaper option. A An exceptional 2,000-year-old female marble statue has been found in Italy. It dates, we're told, to around 2,000 years ago. And it has been found during excavations at the archaeological site of Tusculum. The statue is life-size, making it apparently a true rarity. This site is on the outskirts of Rome. And in ancient times, this was a place for luxurious villas and country houses used by the rich as an escape from the capital. The statue is in fabulous condition and high quality, although it does, of course, miss its head and parts of its arms. They think that it probably belonged to a bathhouse in the period. We are told that it's an exceptional discovery. When they first found it, only part of the statue's back was visible, and it was laying on a thin layer of painted stucco. So it would have been part of an ornamental program of the thermal baths. They have told Newsweek that it's a unique find in the panorama of current archaeology. The statue is absolutely exceptional, with highlights including the detail of the clothing, anatomical parts, and depiction of a fawn skin hanging from the chest. The fawn skin might represent a link to the cult of the god Dionysus, according to researchers. Dionysus, also known as Bacchus, was the Greco-Roman god of wine, fruit, vegetation, and fertility, ritual madness, and ecstasy, among other traits. His followers were often depicted wearing a fawn skin. So how fabulous is that? What a beautiful carving. The Institute of Archaeology at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences have discovered the tomb of the Emperor Xiaomin of the northern Zhou near the Zhanyang city in China. This emperor was the founder of the Xianbei-led Northern Zhou dynasty of China, which lasted from AD 557 to 581. One of the northern dynasties of China's northern and southern dynasties period. It succeeded the Western Wei dynasty and was eventually overthrown by the Sui dynasty. Rather than take the title of emperor, Xiaomin instead used the title Heavenly Prince, which I like. And he was in a power struggle that occurred between him and his cousin, who ultimately deposed him and had him killed. They are conducting excavations adjacent to the airport expressway and have uncovered the tomb of this emperor, and they've called it Tomb M655, a 147 long ditch, 147 something long ditch. I'm assuming it means meter, leading to a tomb oriented north to south axis, and it's a single chamber at depth of 10 meters. They've got funerary offerings such as ceramic vessels, figurines of warriors, cavalry units, a camel, and indiscernible creatures. According to the press announcement, quote, the archaeological discovery of Yawen Zhu's, which is the name of this emperor before they became emperor, tomb from the Northern Zhou dynasty is of great significance. It is the second Northern Zhou emperor's tomb that has been excavated after the Yaoling mausoleum of Emperor Wu of the Northern Zhou dynasty. So I am looking forward to seeing what else we learn about this. I think I am woefully lacking in knowledge when it comes to Chinese history. It is an absolute gap in my education that I hope to remedy. And in many ways, these news items really help. So thank you for those who share them with me. Next up, we have got, I don't think we've got a child archaeologist necessarily. He was with his family. But the picture I'm going to show you, if this does not spark joy for you, I don't know what to tell you. Because this kid is so happy. He's so happy, and I just love it with all of my heart. Look at his little teggies. He's so cute. So a family used a metal detector to look. They were looking for a lost earring, but instead they found treasures from a Viking era burial. This is just days after the gold find of the century was made in Norway by that man who was also just as happy as a little clam. Made my heart sing with the joy in his face. I love it when you see adults and they're so overjoyed by something that you can see the child they were. That is to me the most beautiful thing. The most beautiful thing in the world. Oh, my husband's just flagged up that ladybirds, coccinelle in French, would provide an old world source of red. Ladybirds are called coccinelle. I bow to his superior fluent French speaking with that. So yeah, there's something about seeing an adult and indeed a child, but with that childlike joy in their face, just it makes me so happy. They were looking for lost jewellery at their home, but when they turned on their metal detector, they stumbled upon a bowl-shaped buckle and another item that appeared to be part of a Viking era burial. The local council posted images of the family, and they also showed the clasp and buckle with the engravings on it. Officials have praised the family for their unprecedented discovery and also for immediately contacting authorities about the rare find. Officials said, quote, "They did everything correctly and contacted us first." Just, will you look? When we are pulling together our league of extraordinary child archaeologists, this little happy camper, he needs to be there, because what a little sweetie. What a sweetie. It doesn't seem that they are currently with the family. I don't know where they're going. I believe they may still be being assessed, but perhaps they may get it back, but I don't know how all of the laws about archaeology work in the rest of the world, but it may well be that it goes into a museum, hopefully with this little lad's happy smiling face beside it, because what the joy of a child. We've got an early medieval Govan warrior stone. This has been found at Govan, I think it's probably Govan old churchyard, in a archaeological dig led by the University of Glasgow's Professor Stephen Driscoll and Clyde Archaeology. They have found this medieval carved stone warrior figure. This is new. It's quite unlike anything discovered at the site, which is celebrated for the richness of its Viking-era sculpture. You see a man side on carrying a round shield and a shaft over their shoulder. It's probably either carrying a sword or a spear and is described as a warrior. Govan Old is the home of the Govan Stones Museum, which contains one of the finest collection of early medieval and Viking age sculptures in Europe. There's over 30 sculptures produced by the Viking age kingdom of Strathclyde, a lost kingdom of old Welsh-speaking Britons who dominated the Clyde Valley from the 5th to 11th centuries AD. The new find was found on Saturday, 16th of September 2023, and is nicknamed the Govan Warrior. And yeah, I think we know that cochineals aren't the same as ladybugs or ladybirds. I am wondering if French ladybirds may have been used to do red dye. I will look into the dyeing stuff. So these excavations have been undertaken by this university. 500 people have visited the site over the weekend. Dozens of volunteers from the Govan community have participated in the excavations for the first time. They've been doing this alongside archaeology students from the University of Glasgow and Clyde Archaeology. Professor Driscoll says, quote, "It's a style that makes us think both about the Pictish world and also about the Isle of Man. It's interesting that we are halfway between those two places. Govan is the ideal place for these two artistic traditions or styles to come together. This is probably the most important find I've made in my 30 years of working at Govan Old. The new stone is very exciting because it takes the collection to a different cultural place, as it does not look like the heavier, chunkier Govan school type style. The new stone is much more delicate in its execution, using finer, shallow incisions." I think it's really interesting that so many archaeological sites are opening to the public, to the local community, to people who want to volunteer and help. I mean, what a way to ensure that you've got a future generation of archaeologists, I reckon. Sorry if you hear sirens. There's sirens going on in the background. I didn't do anything. They have no proof. We have got, look at this giant brooch. Look at it, will ya? Another metal detectorist find. This one's found in Somerset. Could have royal origins. It is blinking stunning. It is 9 centimeters in diameter, silver and bronze. Apparently, it's one of the largest objects ever found of this type. And it was found on a former marshland between Cheddar and Wedmore, two places that were connected with Anglo-Saxon royalty. They think this brooch might be linked to the household of Alfred the Great, or one of the other Anglo-Saxon kings of England. This brooch is decorated with mythological beasts, including a rare portrayal of a two-legged dragon known as wyverns, a mythological animal specifically linked with the Anglo-Saxon royal dynasty and associated with both Cheddar and Wedmore. These dragons were used by Anglo-Saxon kings of Wessex, who built important royal centres at Cheddar and Wedmore. At the time the giant brooch was likely lost, Cheddar is one of the most important places in Wessex. An Anglo-Saxon palace was constructed there in the 9th century, and it had become a royal hunting lodge. Alfred the Great was particularly associated with it, and several Anglo-Saxon parliaments were even held there. This brooch is going to go on public display at the Museum of Somerset in Taunton. If you get to see this, let me know what you think. It looks amazing. The curator of archaeology has said that conservation has transformed this fascinating brooch, revealed the intricacies of its design. The fascinating details include fine scratches on the reverse, which may have helped the maker to map out the design. A tiny contemporary mend on the beaded border suggests that this brooch was cherished by its owner and worn for an extended period before it was lost. Tom Maybury, who is the chief exec of Southwest Heritage Trust, said in 878, Alfred the Great rallied his forces in Somerset and defeated the invading Danish army. Wessex was secure, and the foundations had been laid for the creation of a unified English kingdom. The Cheddar brooch comes from a time that was a turning point in English history. It was found by Ian Sansom, who was metal detecting on farmland near Cheddar in Somerset. My husband's very happy because Somerset is where his father comes from, so he feels that he is proud of this find. He's just told me. It was reported through the Portable Antiquity Scheme, and it was then acquired by the Museum of Somerset under the Treasures Act with support from Arts Council England, the V&A Purchase Grant Fund, the Art Fund, and Friends of the Museum of Somerset. And I'm just going to say that if the Somerset Museum with this find does not make probably smaller replicas or maybe sized replicas to sell in the gift shop, they're missing a trick. They are missing a trick because of course people would want a replica of this. A stage that they think once hosted William Shakespeare himself has been found in a Norfolk theatre. We are talking here about St George's Guildhall in King's Lynn, the oldest working theatre in the UK, dating back to 1445. Timber floorboards were found during renovations in the auditorium, and they have been dated back to the 15th century. The theatre claims that there are documents that shows that Shakespeare acted at the venue in 1592 or 1593. The London theatres are closed due to plague, and acting companies, including the Earl of Pembroke's men, which was thought to include Shakespeare, visited King's Lynn. They say they've got the borough account book, which records that the borough paid Shakespeare's company to come and play in the venue. Of course, at that point, they weren't known as Shakespeare's company. They would be soon. These floorboards were uncovered during renovation projects, and it's very, very cool. So they're a combination of tree rink dating and a survey to how the building was assembled dates the floor to between 1417 and 1430, which is when the Guildhall was built. I mean, Shakespeare, I don't think he'd mind, considering the exotic spellings that he used, both for his name. Now, I should have looked that up. So Shakespeare's company is performing in King's Lynn at this time. They would have been paid to do so. And they've got the upper floor, which is in something of its original state, where he could have been walking and could have been performing. Tiffany Stern, a respected professor of Shakespeare and early modern drama at the University of Birmingham, says the evidence he was there has to be patched together, but it is quite strong. And let's remember that circumstantial evidence is still evidence. It is very likely that he was a member of Pembroke's men, and because they did perform his plays Henry VI and Titus Andronicus, and they did visit King's Lynn in 1593. The uncovering of the actual boards retrodden by Shakespeare's troupe in their tours of East Anglia are very significant to archaeologists of the Elizabethan theatre, because it's, when it comes to exploring these spaces, we have the Globe Theatre in London, which is based upon conjecture and was made long before we'd actually found other finds. So they have found the rose, the curtain, and something else, but they've been excavating those. Museum of London Archaeology has been excavating those. And what's interesting are there are different shaped stages. I have a theory as to why that's happening that I can't prove, but I think that they are potentially staged because of the company's needs, in the way that I think the plays are written with the company in mind. I think the stages, particularly the permanent playhouses, the stages are built with the company in mind. In terms of what plays they would have been performing, that's a really good question that I wonder if I can find out, because if they're paid, we should have some description of what play they're performing. Yes, I'm going to look that up, and it will be, if I find out, that will be my update. I thought this was at first an update, but it's not, because we have talked previously about a long lost gentileschi being found, and now here we have, as you can see, another one that has been located. This is Susanna and the Elders that has been rediscovered. It was left in storage for more than 100 years, but it has been now found at Hampton Court Palace. Curators at the Royal Collection believe this painting was commissioned by Charles I's wife, Henrietta Maria, and it's currently on display at Windsor Castle. The Deputy Surveyor of the Queen's Pictures, Anna Reynolds, says it's super exciting. You just could not see the quality of the painting beneath the grime until now, but absolutely it's true, and this find has come about as a result of Artemisa's recently restored reputation. We are seeing in this painting the biblical figure of Susanna in distress over being watched by two men while bathing. She rejected the pair's advances and then was forced to stand trial for false accusations of infidelity were made against her. Reynolds says, we don't estimate the price of anything in the Royal Collection, as we will never sell, but this is a rare work because of its unbroken provenance, except for around 20 years during the interregnum when it was acquired by a man named Banks, who quickly gave it back to the crown upon the restoration. I wonder why. Because apparently things sold under duress or by a troop that have seized control for a temporary period, those sales are recognised as being invalid, even back in the 1600s. Funny that, hey. We don't know how many works by Gentileschi are in existence. New works by her are being found, and they do often make headlines when they are found. The one we talked about was the Lucretia, I think, that sold to the Getty Museum in 2021. And there have been a few that have been found and have been sold since. So if I get a chance to see this, I will post a picture to my community tab and let you see that I found it. Next up, I mean, if they would listen to any argument, I'd happily make it. Happily make it. This one, curators up to some nonsense, apparently. This seems to be an epidemic. A German museum employee has been caught shamelessly swapping original paintings for fakes to fund his lavish lifestyle. Apparently, he spent money on a new apartment, wristwatches, and a Rolls Royce. What? I mean, they are going to be, what we're talking here, Patek Philippe's. A museum employee has confessed after he was caught swapping out paintings with forgeries and selling the originals. He's got a suspended sentence of 1 year and 9 months and is going to have to pay back €60,000 to the German museum. The man is 30. He stole 3 paintings while working at the Deutsche Museum in Munich. He was there as a technician between 2016 and 2018. He replaced the paintings with fakes while they were in storage and then sold the originals at a Munich auction house. He paid debts originally and then funded a luxury lifestyle. He stated that he'd acted without thinking. He could no longer explain his behaviour today. Apparently, he is now remorseful. I bet he is, though he's been caught. So he replaced Franz Stuck's Das Märchen vom Froschenking, which is the fairy tale of the Frog King, with a forgery. Sold it to a Swiss gallery for €70,000. After auction fees, he got $52,000. Euros, I think that means. Then 2 more fakes. 2 girls gathering wood in the mountains and tasting the wine brought an additional €11,490.50, and he in an attempt to sell a 4th painting was unsuccessful, but he did make $64,000 or €60,617 in total. That's a lot. To be fair, that's not a lot of really expensive wristwatches. I mean, have a little look at my back catalogue of these, because this is allegedly endemic. This is a great question. This is a great question. Him? Don't know. The defendant shamelessly exploited the opportunity to access storage rooms in the employer's building and sold valuable cultural assets in order to secure an exclusive standard of living for himself and to show off. The vulnerability of the museum's collection to theft while in storage recalls the recent scandal at the British Museum. And what makes it more problematic is that lots of items in lots of museums have not been properly catalogued or photographed or any of it. Apparently not. I mean, I am in the back end of certain heritage sites, and for the most part in the staff areas there aren't cameras, but what there are is there are cameras everywhere else, entrances, exits, all of that. So there might not be cameras in the staff area, but how do you get it out of the staff area? You go through a door, and those are alarmed, usually coded, and there's cameras everywhere. And paintings aren't small. Paintings aren't small. No, I don't. But I'm sure, Marianne, you did remember that to come out of the back room, to leave the museum, there were cameras all over you, exterior, interior. Like, it's very hard to go from a staff space to a public transport, let's say, without coming into contact with the museum's cameras, I would say. Got some auction news coming up. We have got Ford's theatre tickets from the night of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. They have gone on sale. And my husband just texted me something about CCTV. CCTV in employee-only areas in Europe can be complicated. He did also point out that paintings can be rolled up, and museum management are praised for fundraising, not theft detection. My husband's never stolen any art. He just knows a lot about it. Yeah. So these tickets have sold for $262,500. They were believed to have been used at Ford's Theatre in Washington on the night that Lincoln was assassinated. The price they fetched was more than twice the amount expected when they were sold in Boston. These tickets were for the prime front row seat on the second level, which is in the theatre's dress circle. The original owners of the tickets are unknown, which is a bit of a shame, and the seller of the tickets on Saturday was a manuscript collector from Southern California who asked to be anonymous. That person had purchased them at an auction in 2002 for $83,650. $83,650. I was going to say pounds. This is a massive markup from the original, and 1865 these tickets would have cost 75 cents. So it's gone up a bit. I mean, I had questions about this, and I think that there's a big trade in what's known as murderabilia, and questions need to be asked about that too. It's the tickets from this period, from the night before, would not there's no fathomable way that they would sell for that much. They probably wouldn't even be kept. Maybe some people might keep them, but if it was from the previous day or from the following day, there's no way it would reach this. So the reason that it's got this price, the reason that the auction house has profited, the reason that the seller has profited, is presumably because of the connection to a murder, which does make me feel a little bit icky. I'm going to be honest. Yeah. So, there's key. This is about the museum entry and exits and the cameras. You're keying yourself in and out. Like, people know where you are. This is something that we have learned from the British Museum story, from lots of other museums coming out. The cataloguing of these labyrinthine collections, many of which date back hundreds of years, is not where it needs to be, because these collections are hundreds of years old and they are many hundreds of thousands of items, some of which are teeny weeny tiny. We are talking little bits of button, all of which are individual items, and in some cases they have just all been put in a singular box, possibly by timeline, maybe not, and dumped on a shelf somewhere. It is a nightmare because some of these collections are so old and cataloguing has been historically poor, and they're catching up. but they are underfunded and they still have to curate and take care of the stuff they have, which is only getting older, unsurprisingly. Allegedly. Let's put allegedly in there, shall we? I don't know what. Never seen it before in my life, Governor. Never seen it before in my life, and you can't prove otherwise. You can't prove otherwise. Yeah. I mean, the Tower of London has, or it certainly did have, the chair that Joseph Jacobs was executed on display. And I'll be honest, I feel a kind of way about that. We have got a long lost letter by George Washington that's going to be auctioned, and it's going on the market for $275,000. This letter is addressed to Brigadier General James Potter. It's dated October 18th, 1777, penned the same day that the US president received news about the surrender of British troops at Saratoga in New York. This marked the first revolutionary victory over the British. The president wrote in this letter mentioning both Providence and heaven in the opening lines. Quote, "I congratulate you on the glorious success of our arms in the north, an account of which is enclosed," the letter reads. "This singular favour of Providence is to be received with thankfulness, and the happy moment which heaven has pointed out for the firm establishment of American liberty ought to be embraced with becoming spirit. The Battle of Saratoga is long considered the decisive point in the war, a month-long series of manoeuvres that turned the tide for the Revolutionary Army." Washington's letter to Potter reflected his understanding of Saratoga's significance in the New York theatre, besides providing instructions to further disrupt British communications. "For this purpose, you should strain every nerve. Let me again entreat you, and through your means, everyone of any influence among the militia, to exert it to the utmost in exciting them to the field, where by seasonable reinforcement the glorious work we have in hand will be completed. Your most humble servant, G. Washington." This letter, in its beauty, draws together many of the threads of the American experience: God, patriotism, victory, destiny. This is Nathan Rabb, who is the principal at the Rabb Collection. Its discovery is exciting and proof that Washington's words continue to inspire. So it's being sold by the Rabb Collection. It's a private firm that deals with historical documents, and they have valued it at $275,000. So I guess we're going to find out what this ends up reaching, and also where it ends up. Hopefully not a private collection. I think it's an important letter that needs to be looked at. Another auction piece, a newly attributed Raphael drawing, is that's just closed. That's unhelpful. There we go. Is heading to auction. This is a preparatory work for the study of the Battle of Milovan Bridge. It's a fresco that's now displayed in the pardon me, just hit the microphone there, in the Vatican's papal authority. This is an auction house in Vienna, Doth Reum. It's offering a work which is on paper identified as a late drawing by Raphael. It's going to be auctioned on the 25th of October. It's a red chalk of a horse and rider by the Italian Old Master. It's estimated that it's going to fetch between 400 and 600,000 euros. On the back of the sheet are drawings by Raphael's assistant, which were probably executed later. This drawing is a preparatory study which went in the fresco in the Hall of Constantine at the Vatican. Quote, the study is especially significant due to its role within one of the most ambitious artistic projects of the 16th century, the decoration of the papal apartments. Compositional and stylistic details confirm this is a preparatory study by Raphael for the celebrated fresco. Quote, it has an energy, a verve, a movement, and a quality that makes this sheet an outstanding rarity. According to the auction house, this work was in a private collection in France until the 1930s, where it was probably acquired by the scholar and collector Johan Quirin van Retingen Altena. In 1940, he published both drawings in the UK-based Burlington magazine, attributed these works to Peter Paul Rubens. The work was then sold at Christie's in 2015, described as Italian school 16th century, where it was then acquired by the present owner. And then in January, research teams from the universities of Bradford and Nottingham used facial recognition to compare the faces to works in the Sistine Madonna. And that's how it got Old Masters experts were able to attribute it to Raphael. An original letter from Columbus announcing the discovery of America is going on sale for the first time. In 1492, he wrote a letter, quote, I sailed to the Indies with the fleet that the illustrious king and queen, our sovereigns, gave me, where I discovered a great many islands inhabited by numberless people. Of all I have taken possession for their highnesses. Bold of you. The events related in this letter were the first report of a voyage that really did change the world. Now we have a Latin translation of this letter printed on an early printing press that was designed to convey these discoveries to an elite European market. It's expected to fetch up to £1.2 million, that's $1.5 million, at Christie's auction this month. In current times, quote, Columbus has lost his former status as an honorary all-American hero and quasi-founding father, but notoriety rarely hurts one's market value, especially in the US. And then this person said, witness Donald Trump. Spicy. This letter praises the rich natural assets of islands Columbus encountered, talks about the extraordinarily timid native people. They are so unsuspicious and so generous. They are, quote, like fools. There is a big amount of all of these kinds of documents. I worked a bit on this in my thesis. These finding the New World discovery documents from the late 1400s into the 1500s. There's a big push to talk about how these natives are childlike and naked, and they make a big thing about them being unarmed. It's almost like they're saying they haven't got arms or armor, and they're super innocent. They will give you, there's one quote that talks about they will give you a pearl for or the finest jewel they have about them for bits of broken buttons and broken mirror. So yeah, this letter is an interesting thing. This which had been in a private Swiss collection for nearly a century. Christie describes it as, quote, the earliest obtainable edition of Columbus's letter, and its publication did trigger one of the first media frenzies. And let's be clear, the printing of documents connected to the New World in Europe is super interesting. Super interesting. It's a dark history, but it's an interesting history. The impact of the text demonstrates just how good Columbus was at PR. This is according to Cuban-American medieval historian Professor Teo Ruiz. Quote, he made sure everybody knew what he had done, that he had reached the islands of the Indies, a collective term for India and the Far East, by sailing westwards, which, of course, was not true. Oh, Lord. No, James. No. No, that was not what I meant. I meant the comment was spicy. Oh, there's not enough bleach in the world to bleach that out of my brain. Tonight it's been traumatizing, whether it's things coming out of camels, carved phalluses, and now spicy Trump. Nope, no thank you. No thank you. No thank you. This reminded me a little bit of that Buddha statue that went out of a Maces of Space. Correct. Good point. Good point. I always need a nap, Scarlett. I always need a nap. This reminded me of that Buddha that we heard about last time that was stolen from a garden. Here we've got a large bronze statue of a rearing horse stolen from the grounds of a historic estate. Because wasn't that the Buddha was in a garden too, of a gallery. This is in Dorset. It was taken between 10 o'clock at night on the 26th of September and 8 in the morning on the 27th. Apparently a blue-style transit van was close to the estate. The statue can be identified through a signature marked Marsha Astor 2000. The Dorset Rural Crime Team spokesperson said, quote, "I'm appealing to anyone who witnessed the statue being stolen, please contact us. I also wish to identify the owner of the above-mentioned vehicle sighted in the area at this time so that we can speak to them." According to the head gardener, quote, "The extremely heavy bronze sculpture was carefully lifted off without a scratch on the plinth. The sculpture was made by the owner's godmother, Marsha Astor, the sculptor. Her signature and the foundry mark are on the statue. This sculpture has played a crucial life in their life and has been in the gardens for 23 years. Ford Abbey has a 900-year history. It was once a monastery. The house has passed through a variety of owners, including MPs and the philosopher Jeremy Bentham. Apparently, this estate was also used as a location for film. Robert Downey Jr. filmed The Restoration and the 2015 version of Far from the Madding Crowd. I mean, there's no way this wasn't planned. This has to have been scoped out. And I hope that this bronze statue was stolen to order. I fear that they want the bronze. I fear they want the bronze rather than the statue, in which case this is not going to be found. We have got a change in policy. The Carnegie Museum of Natural History in Pittsburgh has taken a diorama off display because that diorama contains human remains. The diorama was entitled Lions Attacking a Dromedary. So it was two lions attacking a camel. There was a female lion apparently looking like it had been dead at the feet of the camel. The camel was being ridden by someone who's turning out, and the human remains were the skull within the face. So that was the human remains were then placed within, and a reconstruction of the face was put on top. Last week, the skull was removed from that sculpted face, and the windows of the case were covered in an opaque vinyl. And next to the case, there was a question about why is the diorama changing? There is full moon, camel moon, don't know. The camels hit the news. Everyone's all about camels. Everyone's thinking about camels. The museum has said that it's chosen not to reconstruct the rider's face, and the skull is undergoing tests to see if it can be repatriated. The diorama, I don't think so. So the original title was An Arab Courier Attacked by Lions. I suppose it depends on how the skull in it was created, defleshed. I don't know. I mean, you need to be good friends, really good friends. No, it didn't need a skull. This exhibit was removed from display in 2020. Then in 2021, it was put back on display with signs that contextualize the history and the inaccuracy, as well as the 2017 maintenance of the piece. The Carnegies also removed the skull and bones of an individual which had been used to illustrate archaeology and ancient burial practices from its Hall of Egypt in accordance with its new policy. This policy also applies to casts made from human remains. And as we're going to point out, earlier this week, Philadelphia's Penn Museum also changed its policy and is now going to stop the display of exposed human remains altogether within the institution. Here we have the Penn Museum, this is that article, has decided that it's going to stop displaying human remains. It will no longer display exposed human remains. Only wrapped remains, such as mummies, or enclosed remains like coffins, will be considered for display. It's also going to bolster its efforts to repatriate human remains beyond the NAGPRA Act. It's going to have 5 new staff roles responsible for researching human remains and ensuring their repatriation. There's already 2 working on it. There's going to be 3 new hires focusing on biological anthropology. Quote, confronting our institutional history tied to a colonial collection practice requires continuous examination and assessment of our policy. It's our moral, ethical, and social responsibility. This is the museum's director, Christopher Woods. Penn has said it will prioritise, quote, human dignity over public access. These guidelines also impact educational programmes and research access. Human remains that were collected unethically and without consent, quote, will not normally be available for research, teaching, or display. In undergraduate classes, lower level students won't handle human remains directly, but upper level undergraduate and graduate classes may include remains from the collection subject to approval by Penn's Human Remains Committee. This news comes amid international debate surrounding the ethical use and display of human remains in museums, with particular concerns about the provenance and past collecting methods. The Mutter Museum has also been mired in similar conversations and will soon begin seeking public feedback on the future of its human remains collection. I mean, I made a decision, I want to say over a year ago, that I was no longer going to display photographs from articles where human remains were included. And that is even when they are not visibly and identifiably human. So where they have been carved into something else. So I included that staff because I don't believe that to be human remains. The reason for me making that decision is because I don't know, I cannot be sure that those people ever consented to their remains being on display. And they certainly didn't consent to me displaying their remains for profit. So that is why, for me, it's an absolute no. This is our last new news before we hop into the ding-dongs. This is another curator. This one's not robbing, but this one has been found guilty of conducting private tours of the estate at Versailles that earned him $26,000. He was suspended until a regional court overturned the palace's disciplinary action. He organised private visits and paid conferences at the royal residence, earning him €25,000 in 2022. However, there's been a setback for the palace because a regional judge has suspended the action that it took against Alexandre Maral, who was the head of the Department of Sculptures at Versailles back in March. In September 2025, a judge pushed back against the palace's decision, citing, quote, serious doubts as to the legality of the disciplinary action and its proportionality in relation to the alleged offences. This case was originally laid out in a 5-page report, and it revealed that the Palace of Versailles director had become aware of these activities late in 2022 and emailed the curator with his concerns. This warning did not dissuade him, and he carried out further 8 private visits between December the 5th and January the 15th. Then the palace launched an investigation. It found that Morale had held 20 lectures outside of his official capacity, and in only 5 instances had he informed his employer. He was then summoned to a meeting, and he acknowledged the facts that were correct, claimed the money he received had compensated for the costs involved in holding such events. Then a report was sent to the Versailles public prosecutor, who handed Morale a 2.5-year suspended sentence in March. It accused Morale of misappropriating public funds, engaging in passive corruption, as well as a breach of trust and embezzlement. I think I'm not a legal expert, but I don't see how these are, if these were events that were not being organized by Versailles itself, if he's doing it, in what way is it embezzlement? Given his level of responsibility, he was necessarily aware that he was committing fault by soliciting or accepting payment in return for art facilitated by his position. Then a lawyer working on his behalf said that his client's conferences and tours were permitted, and that his only fault was not properly informing his employer. He called into question the president of the palace's capacity to sanction him, given that she is currently serving as interim president with Versailles and has yet to nominate a successor following the end of her term in 2021. The Palace of Versailles did not respond to a request for comment. Here's my little question. I am assuming this individual has the keys to Versailles, if he can do this. Quite a lot of responsibility. I want to know what his yearly salary was. I want to know how much this expert was being paid to have the level of responsibility where he is in charge of the keys to Versailles, because I would be willing to bet that it was not commensurate with the responsibility nor the level of skill and knowledge required to do the job. And I wonder if this was about making things right. And I also wonder if perhaps his predecessor behaved in similar ways. For the length of time that places have been open to the public or not open to the public, when the Tower of London, when people wanted to come and visit the Tower of London, we are talking back in the 16th century, certainly the 17th century, but further back than that, the beef eaters, the yeoman warders would take a fee. The reason the crown jewels got pinched in the reign of Charles II is because the deputy keeper of the jewels was keeping the crown jewels in a crate in his house, arguably, they claim, under his bed. And he was charging people, supplementing his meagre income, he was charging people to see the crown jewels. And apparently for extra money, you could try on the crown. So my question is, how much was he earning? And is it commensurate with what he deserved? Is this something that has been happening for a very long time? Is it there's almost like an unspoken perk of the job that he has been stung for? I agree that it's contractual issues. I think it's an industrial tribunal. And I can see where they're going from that. But these are I suppose that the thing is that there are plenty of people that do lead tour groups, private tours around in their own personal capacity. I work in heritage institutions. If somebody paid me to lead a tour around somewhere with my expertise, if they've paid for their tickets, why? What if unless it's been organised by them, which they can get a cut. But if I'm doing the extra work, surely there should be some funding for that. Yes, they certainly did. Certainly did. Well, the thing is, they clearly knew it was going on because they sent him a warning email. So it kind of. I wonder how secret it was. I wonder how secret it was. Very much depends on who on the curatorial decisions and the pieces that are in there. And also the lights that you have. If you have no natural light, then they may have special bulbs that are okay to be around. In some cases, lights are kept on for various reasons throughout the day and night. So I don't know. This one, I feel like this was a really silly thing to do, but at the same time, I feel like there's more to it. I think that the people in charge knew a lot more than they weren't surprised by this. I think that this is possibly something that has happened systematically with people who filled that role. It was probably viewed by his predecessor as a perk of the job. And people who, I can see how if you are taking quite a lot of charge of a place, you might feel an ownership for it. You might. They could well, if they had been sensible about it, they could have gone, let's set this up. We'll be in charge of the bookings. We'll give you a percentage. Let us be on board. We need curatorial. We need to be in part of this. Let's advertise it as part of the Versailles offer. They could have done that. Maybe he wasn't willing to cut them in, and that's why they've kicked off. I don't know. But I can see this is a no-no. But at the same time, there's a part of me that goes, I don't think this is as cut and dry as they're making out. Well, friends, it is that time of the night. Maybe. The bell is out. My little piddling boy, it's time for the ding-dongs. Let's do these ding-dongs. This was sent to me a lot. This is a big one. Still unclear why this has happened. There are loads of rumours going around as to what's the motivation behind this happening. I'm not going to go into any of those rumours because there are so many floating around and there is going to be some kind of a criminal prosecution. I'm not going to get involved until we know more. What I can tell you is that the tree, so known as the Sycamore Gap tree, which grows in a natural dip in Hadrian's Wall, has been felled without permission. It's said that this was planted in the 1800s to be a feature in the landscape, and it has become incredibly popular. It's become a site where people have proposed, people have scattered ashes, photographs have been taken. It's, I think, most famously, if anybody saw Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, this is the tree from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, where that little lad, Wolf, hides in there. This, on the morning of the 28th September 2023, it was found out that it had chopped down overnight. An investigation was launched, a cordon put in place. There were forensic officers there, and a 16-year-old boy and a man in his 60s have been arrested on suspicion of criminal damage and then released on bail. Historic England has revealed that part of Hadrian's Wall was damaged when the tree was felled also. The remains of the tree it's thought that they're going to be removed at a later date. A temporary fence has been put up to protect the stump, and park rangers are now carrying out patrols. The National Trust has asked people not to go there while they fully assess the tree and do the work needed to make it safe. People have been trying to lend a helping hand. There's been a fundraising site set up with £4,000 raised to help improve and rejuvenate the surrounding area. A sapling that was planted in the area nearby was removed from the site because it does have World Heritage status. So yes, someone mentioned, I saw up that people said that they planted a sapling and then took it away. I mean, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so they have to manage it. It's now going to be managed, but has to be managed by a committee. The manager of the National Trust, Andrew Pode, said that the stump was healthy and they might be able to coppice the tree. So trunk shoots might be able to grow from the trunk, but it may take up to 200 years to get back to where it once was. There have been suggestions about what to do with the remaining wood. The High Sheriff of Northumberland, Diana Barks, has suggested that people have something made out of it so people can come and remember the tree and remember their loved ones. This is where all the rumours are coming from, and some of them are, I think, potentially valid rumours, but they are just rumours, and there is a criminal investigation happening. But there is some suggestion that this may in some way have been politically motivated. And that's really all I want to say. As and when more things are confirmed, it will absolutely be in the updates. When they have a plan as to what they're going to do on the site, I will of course update you. I know there's a lot of very upset people because of this, I think, and understandably so. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, an American tourist has been arrested for allegedly smashing a bunch of statues in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. Two ancient Roman statues from the 2nd century have been broken on the floor of the museum. Apparently, the man said that he did it because they were, quote, against the Torah. His lawyer has denied that he acted out of religious fanaticism, according to the AP news agency. The museum staff alerted police after seeing a man damaging the two statues: the sculpture of the head of Athena, who is the daughter of the Greek god Zeus, and a statue of a griffin grasping a wheel of fate of the Roman god Nemesis have been reported by the Times of Israel to be the ones that were broken. It's a 40-year-old US citizen arrested at the scene, currently being questioned by Israeli police, and they have not yet released the suspect's identity. As part of the initial investigation, though, the police say that the man claimed the statues represented idol worship. As we get more updates on that, I will let you know, but that must have been terrifying for the people in the museum, visitors, staff alike, and it sounds to me like this gentleman is unwell, and I hope that he gets the help that he clearly needs. When I tell you, when I walk into a museum that's like, let things be, let them not be in glasses, like in glass cases, when things are not like behind bulletproof glass, I am terrified, because I've usually got a bag, sometimes a backpack, and when I tell you that I can feel my skin crawling at the thought of it. Doing this by accident is my worst nightmare. I cannot imagine doing it on purpose. I cannot imagine doing it on purpose. I did read an article where they talked about him having Jerusalem syndrome, which I've never heard of, so I didn't want to kind of delve into it. But the description of Jerusalem syndrome is that people become so overwhelmed by the spiritual significance of this place that they essentially devolve into zealotry, which is fascinating. But I don't love that. I mean, I'm assuming that there's some kind of issue, because he willingly went to the museum and then was just decided that sculptures were idolatry. And I don't know. I don't know. There are some. So at Hampton Court, there's like alarms and things and ropes. And if you sort of, some of them are really sensitive. So there's one where it used to be if you walked on a floorboard across the room, it triggered the alarm. Mortifying. Because the worst thing was this floorboard was, when I was doing some of my interpretation stuff there, this is a floorboard you had to walk over or try to avoid to go out and do your bit of your performance. So you just get this kind of reh as you're walking out. Horrific. So now we're going on to events and exhibitions. This one at the Guildhall Art Gallery in London looks incredible. This is called Treasures of Gold and Wire, and it opened in September and it is running until the 12th of November. So not long left on this, but they've got some incredible things in there in terms of the embroidery and all sorts of the pictures I've seen look so beautiful, and I think if you're around, go and check this out. I mentioned earlier that in my description box and also on the upper pinboard there are links to the access information for these sites, so do check that out if you need it. It's both in my description box and also on the upper pinboard that's also linked in the description box. We have coming soon in Leiden an exhibition called The Year 1000, the Netherlands in the Middle Ages. It's going to open very soon, opening on the 13th of October, and it's running until the 17th of March 2024. And what really caught my eye was this little cloak pin with the male head that dates from between 8 to 900. I just thought that was so special, and it just points to me that there are some incredible finds on display, so very much worth a check out if you're going to be in Leiden. And if you are there, then please do let me know what you think of it when you see it. Fabulous. And last but by no means least, an upcoming, we've got a few years to wait for this, but it sounds really interesting. UNESCO is planning a virtual museum of stolen cultural artifacts, aimed at raising public awareness of trafficking and the unique importance of cultural heritage. Quote, behind every stolen work or fragment lies a piece of history, identity and humanity that's been wrenched from its custodians, rendered inaccessible to research, and now risks falling into oblivion. Our objective with this is to place these works back in the spotlight and to restore the right of societies to access their heritage, experience it, and recognise themselves in it. This exhibition is being developed with the Interpol, which is the International Police Organisation, and they have a database of cultural objects stolen from museums, collections, and archaeological sites. They've got more than 52,000 artefacts. This virtual museum is a £2.5 million dollar museum, or a £2.05 million virtual museum that's set to open in 2025. So I will keep my eyes peeled, and when I have information about that opening, I'm assuming online, I will let you know. So that is what I have for you for today. Thank you all for spending nearly 3 hours with me. And if you're watching this on the playback, thank you for spending 3 hours as I freaked out about seeing the inside of a camel on the outside. I'm not going to forget that. Soon, I tell you. Great comments. Love the chat. I'm looking forward to reading it back as well. And thank you all for your support, for your kindness to me and to each other. It really does mean ever so much. Please do subscribe to the channel, press all the buttons, comment both in the chat and in the comment section, share this with your friends, and head over to my website, www.katrinamarchant.com, and sign up to the mailing list. because that is what I'm going to tell you about a new item of merch that I have been working on with my friends. I think it's something that's been asked for. It was one of the first things that was ever asked for, and I'm going to be able to share that on my mailing list this week. I will be sharing it, and then it will be going live on the shop the following week. So make sure you are signed up for the mailing list to get that image of what's coming soon. So that is what I have for you. I will see, hopefully, some of you in the live chat on Friday. I will see some of you on the History After Dark chat on Wednesday. Thank you all for everything, and I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video. Please do take care of yourself, but bye-bye for now.